My name is Haley White, and I will be discussing the topic of food insecurity in Omaha, Nebraska throughout my presentation. My studies, clinical experience, and experience as a CNA throughout nursing school has given me the opportunity to gain a wealth of knowledge about my community. The past 3 years have exposed my lack of awareness to the needs of my neighbors, near and far, and I have come to the realization that food insecurity in my community and throughout the United States is more prevalent than I once thought. Omaha, Nebraska has a very high concentration of food insecurity within the community, and although I have not personally been affected by food insecurity, it is a topic that I care deeply about. No matter where my nursing career takes me, I will treat patients and families who have a lack of consistent access to enough food for an active, healthy life. An effective communicator is one that uses critical thinking to generate, connect, and organize ideas in an oral, nonverbal, and written manner. During one of my many experiences as a CNA, like most days, I was extremely busy, and although I did not display my feelings, I was frustrated that I had spent so much time in one patient's room when I had 8 more patients to care for. My patient called me into her room, and when I arrived, she was gasping for air and clearly in respiratory distress. Part of being an effective communicator is using appropriate oral skills. During the very brief conversation I had with the nurse, I quickly and effectively told her exactly what was happening with the patient, and this ultimately initiated an RRT. The connection I built with the patient all day gave me the ability to see the fear through her eyes and body language. She could not tell me, but I knew how scared she was. She could not ask me, but I knew she wanted me to stay with her. This was a memorable experience for many reasons. I learned how truly important good communication between healthcare providers has to be in order to provide thorough treatment. More importantly, I learned how important nonverbal communication can be. Healthcare providers have a unique opportunity to treat the patient's mind, body, and emotions every day. This cannot be done without effective communication between myself, other healthcare providers, and the patient. In this situation, nonverbal communication was more important in identifying the patient's condition than verbal communication was. Oftentimes, many people have trouble asking for help, or they ask for help without revealing the real reason they're seeking assistance. People affected by food insecurity are embarrassed and rarely come right out about their inability to provide food for themselves or their family. So it will be my responsibility as a nurse to recognize signs of food insecurity without verbal communication. I will also have to use verbal communication with my patients. Simply spending time with them, as I did in the experience I just spoke about, and getting to know them through conversation will aid in my ability to pick up on what their unspoken needs are. Before I start every clinical experience, I remind myself that although intimidating at times, transparent communication with my patients is essential in caring for them. Upon receiving change of shift report about a patient at clinical, I learned that they were very particular about certain things pertaining to their care. Instead of letting this intimidate me, I set the tone by introducing myself to the patient in a respectful yet assertive way and simply started a conversation with them to get to know them a little bit better. I felt the mood lighten immediately, and it created a comfortable and safe environment to discuss the plan of care and expectations the patient had for me and vice versa. Through simple conversation, I learned why the patient had been so particular about certain things. They had been through multiple hospitalizations over the past 6 months and felt they had completely lost control of their health and their life. The patient had a control what you can control mentality, and they did their best to do just that. If they were able to control or take charge of their care in any way they could, they did. We've all heard the saying, "Don't judge a book by its cover," and this experience gave me an entirely new perspective and appreciation for this saying. Prior to this experience, I let poor reports on patients intimidate me, and this led me to close myself off before the patient was able to reveal who they truly were. It was because of this experience that I have made it my mission to get to know every single one of my patients, with the hope that their experience in the hospital would be as painless as possible. Making human connections is one of the many aspects that makes the nursing field so special. It is something we all seek, especially when we are in our most vulnerable state. The patient had been on the floor for multiple days, but they had never felt comfortable enough to share that side of them. So everyone assumed that they were super particular about their care and had a type A personality. I left my shift that day feeling so good about the level of care I provided to my patient. It was because of effective communication. Effective communication is important in everything we do, but is especially pertinent to providing quality care to patients and addressing their needs. The cause of food insecurity is unique to each person and situation. There are many reasons people may not have access to adequate nutrition, and one way I'll be able to advocate for my patients is finding out the why. Once I figure out the why, I can lead the patient in the right direction so they receive the assistance they need. As a nursing student and developing reflective individual, I am constantly seeking experiences to positively and productively produce new ways of thinking and acting. I was approached by a nurse at my first week of clinical on the cardiac intensive care unit, asking me if I would assist his patient to the bathroom. Without hesitation, I agreed to help the patient, but upon arriving to the patient's room, I realized I did not know the proper precautions to take for a patient who had just had open heart surgery 72 hours ago. So I did my best to slowly guide the patient to the bathroom, but he was adamant that he get there immediately or he would not make it. The nurse walked into the room and immediately took over. He politely but assertively told me what I was doing wrong, showed me the proper way to do it, but I was surprised by how straightforward he had been right in front of the patient. As I reflected on the situation, I changed my way of thinking from taking it as an attack on me and my ability to become a good nurse to looking at it as an opportunity to learn. I learned three things from that experience: ask questions, trust my instincts, and being assertive in patient care can be a form of advocacy for the patient. I should have asked for clarification on the patient's condition and any precautions that should be taken when getting the patient up to the bathroom. I knew the patient was moving too fast getting up to the bathroom, but I did not have the confidence to speak up and be assertive to the patient. Finally, my reflection of the situation and how the nurse spoke to me revealed that the nurse was never trying to assault me, but rather he was advocating for the patient's care and safety and teaching me something in the process. My inability to ask questions and trust my instincts in this situation was counterproductive, but with a little self-reflection, I was able to gain a new way of thinking and acting. Addressing food insecurity is undoubtedly an uncomfortable topic, as it is a touchy subject for most, and there is a high chance that it may be a source of embarrassment for people. I can use what I learned in the experience I just discussed by asking my patients questions, trusting my instincts, and being confident when doing so. As I previously mentioned, oftentimes people are not going to voluntarily discuss their struggles with providing food for themselves or their family. If I am uncomfortable discussing a certain topic with my patients, they are going to see it, and it may cause them to become uncomfortable or closed off. I will strive to create an inviting and judgment-free environment for all my patients with the hope that I receive full transparency. I had the opportunity to care for a patient during my third year of nursing school that taught me more than a classroom ever could. I spent 2 days with the patient and his wife, getting to know them individually, and was fortunate enough to create a bond with them in the 2 12-hour shifts that I spent with them. He was what most healthcare providers would call a star patient. He followed all of our recommendations without hesitation, even though he knew it would cause him temporary discomfort. He never complained once, and even though I could see the pain in his eyes. By the end of the day with him, I was looking for excuses to go into his room to visit with him and his wife. The final interaction I had with this patient ended with a statement made by him that I will never forget. He said, quote, "It is not about how much you know about the patient's condition that matters. It's about how much you care about the human being sitting right in front of you that matters." Unquote. The biggest difference you can make in a patient's life and recovery is not determined by how smart you are or by the grades that you got while you were in school. It matters how much you care, how much compassion you show your patient, and how much empathy you share for your patient that makes a bigger impact than how you physically care for them. As a healthcare provider, it is essential we care for our patients with a holistic approach: their minds, their bodies, and their spirit. This experience made me realize how important it is to take a holistic approach to patient care. This approach to patient care also includes addressing nutritional needs so patients are effectively able to maintain a healthy lifestyle or recover from injury or illness. Food insecurity can negatively impact a person's health, leading to obesity, chronic diseases, or shortened lifespan, according to the landscape of Omaha. Whether I am working in the community or I'm working in the hospital and my patient is about to be discharged, I will need to ensure that they have access to a healthy diet that is going to improve their health. Within the last 3 years, I have met and had the pleasure of taking care of many people from different cultural backgrounds. I have always treated others from different cultures with the same respect and dignity as people from my own culture. I may not understand it, but I always make an effort to acknowledge my patients' beliefs and encourage to continue practicing their rituals while they're in the hospital. I tend to shy away from asking people to help me understand their practices in fear that I will offend them. But one day at work, I decided to step out of my comfort zone and ask my patient questions. To my surprise, my patient was overjoyed to share that part of herself with me. She allowed me to hold the objects on her bedside table and told a story with each one of them. She talked about the variety of different foods she believed would help her heal while she was in the hospital and wrote down a recipe for me to take home. This patient and I spent over 45 minutes together getting to know one another, and it is an experience that I will never forget. She later shared with me, as the day was coming to an end, that it had meant a lot to her. I felt encouraged to simply start asking questions because no one had ever done so. I felt compelled to step out of my comfort zone that day and ask questions that I've always wanted to ask but have been too afraid to. I've It has always bothered me knowing patients feel their cultural and religious beliefs are not being honored in the hospital setting, and I feel this is due to cultural incompetence within our society. This opportunity increased my cultural competence and allowed me to view life through someone else's eyes. I gained the confidence I was greatly lacking to start asking my patients questions that will help me understand them better. This experience is a great example of the importance of educating oneself to become culturally competent in different areas of life, including the many different diets. According to the landscape, Hispanics and Blacks are affected by food insecurity more than any race in Omaha, Nebraska. Addressing the needs of patients who are food insecure also includes being familiar with the food preferences of among all races. I had an experience recently with a friend who brought up a topic that everyone has been talking about: whether or not to get the COVID-19 vaccine and whether or not it is really necessary if the survival rate is over 95%. I've always valued her knowledge that she has in her field of alternative medicine, and I'm always willing to listen and change my way of thinking if I have been presented with factual information. But I was quite taken aback when she shared something with me that she read online, to which she agreed with, knowing how I would feel about it. In short, the social media post discussed one man's inability to justify getting the vaccine when the survival rate of COVID-19 was over 95%. I felt angry that she had the audacity to bring it up to me because I felt it showed a total lack of empathy for what I and so many of our mutual friends have gone through over the past year. I did not reply to her right away because I thought it would be best if I stepped back and reflected on what she said and how it made me feel before sharing my thoughts with her. I have had to swallow my pride and demonstrate respect for others with alternative point of views my entire life. This situation was no different, no matter how hard it was for me to do so. This experience was a good reminder that not everyone is meant to agree with each other about everything. That is what makes us all unique. Part of being a change agent is demonstrating respect for others with alternative points of view. The saying, "You can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink it," is one of my favorite analogies in reference to encouraging patients to make healthy changes in their lives. I can lead patients to the resources to address their needs, but I cannot make them make changes. Most of the time, food insecurity is out of the patient's control, but other factors such as unemployment under certain circumstances, and spending money on unnecessary items are factors people can control. As a nurse and advocate, I can do my best to educate my patients that nutrition should be seen as a necessity rather than an adjustable expense, but if they choose not to make the changes, I cannot make them do so. According to Nebraska Methodist College, an educated citizen is a competent practitioner and engaged citizen who responds productively to the complex dynamics of the world, utilizing a diversity of disciplines and perspectives. The three goals of an educated citizen are effective communicator, reflective individual, and change agent. In this presentation, I discuss experiences that have led me to become an educated citizen and ways I can use each of these goals of an educated citizen to address food insecurity in Omaha, Nebraska. These experiences will not only help me address problems like food insecurity, but I will carry them with me as I begin my nursing career and continue to build on the progress I have made to become the best version of myself for my future patients. Thank you.